Hello and welcome to this tutorial where I will explain how to use the new Carbon Simulation Live Simulation feature. Let's get started. We have a basic scene with a collider here, that's a floor, a collider here, that's a torus, a rigid body sphere, and a flat grid. The scene is in meters and our grid, when flat, is 1.2 meters long. Let me just play the simulation now. You can see the grid falls and so does the rigid body. Alright. Now let's go to Carbon Simulation node, and if you go down here, we can see a collapsed section called Live Simulation. Let's open this up. And here we have a few parameters, start, end, and parameters for picking. Let's do the basic thing and press start. And we can see the simulation starts to run independently from the timeline. Our timeline still is on frame 1, but the simulation runs live like a game in the viewport. I can press end, which also means pause. I press start again and it continues, and end again, and start, and end. If I want to reset the simulation, I press reset simulation. Please make sure to press end before pressing reset simulation. Also note that once you press reset simulation, all of your progress is gone, so you will not get it back once you press this. Alright, I'm going to press it now, reset, and here we are. Alright, what are the other parameters? Picking parameters. What is picking? Picking allows you to actually live interact with the simulation. So if I press start again, and I hover my mouse over the rigid body or over the cloth, so dynamic objects, you can see a white bounding box appearing. Here's a white bounding box over the cloth and a white bounding box over the rigid body. If I now use my left mouse button, click and hold, I can move an object around. And I have picked it. So before I pick it, when you only see the white bounding box, we're tracing the object. We're running a ray test against carbon objects in the scene. Once you use the left mouse button to select an object, now it is picked. So it goes from traced into picked. Let me go back to the simulation and reset the simulation. And I make this smaller here so I can see all parameters in one go. Perfect. All right, here we have 3 parameters. Max distance. This is the max distance for the ray test. Our scene is in meters, so max cutoff for the ray test is 100. It's probably larger than we need, but that's fine, as long as it's not too small. If I set this to a small number, for example 0.01, so that would equate to 1 centimeter. Let's reset the simulation, press start again, and I move over here. You do not see the white bounding box appearing, which means I'm not tracing the objects. So if I try to select, nothing happens because they're not traced. The ray test cuts out. I can now press end or pause simulation and I can change a parameter. Note that you do not have to reset the simulation for these parameters to become active, so for these changes to become active, but you need to pause it or end it. All right, let's go back to max distance. I'm going to set it back to 100. Press start again, so resume the simulation. And now if I click on the viewport, I can see my white bounding box is appearing and I can select the cloth too. Now, you see that I picked somewhere in the middle, but everything is being moved. Everything is being selected as demonstrated by the physics draw. You can see the white dots and the purple magenta lines appearing. Everything on the cloth is being selected and picked. That's usually not what you want to do. You only want to select a few select points. Let's go back to simulation shape. And this, and again, I do not have to reset the simulation. I can just change the radius. The radius says how many or says what points are being selected within a certain radius of my picking location. So 1 means 1 meter, which is too big. Let's go to 0.1, so 10 centimeters. I will reset the simulation now so we can see it clearer. Start. Now no box is appearing because I need to click on the viewport. Now I've clicked on the viewport, we can see the box appearing. I'm going to click now and you can see our 10 centimeter radius circle. And it's still quite a lot of points that are being selected. I probably want to reduce this a little bit further. All right, let me end this. And I'm going to set it to 3 centimeters, so 0.03 as we are in meters as seen by the length scale. All right, let's press start again and continue simulation. I'm over the viewport and I select, and now you can see I have somewhere around 10 points selected. And I can now move this cloth and do things with it. And it's a good number of points are being selected. All right, everything is gone now, so best to end and reset the simulation. What's the last parameter? It's called strength scale. So this controls how much force our picking and dragging actually applies. And I can show you that one now is actually too large. If I press start and I select the rigid body, and I move it up and I move it down. You can see I have the force to actually push it through the floor. So my picking is so strong that it actually strongly fights with the collision. This is not what we want. Also, if I take the cloth and now I try to move it down through the floor, it actually gets dragged through the floor. And this is not what we want. We actually want collision to be stronger than the picking. All right, let's go back to the simulation. I'm going to end this, reset the simulation, so I have my clean starting point again. Let's reduce it, 0.01, so by a factor of 100. I'm going to press start again, and now I'm going to grab the cloth. You can see that it now lags behind. You see a white line appearing between my mouses and the cloth, and it lags behind. So is this too strong or too weak? Well, one thing to test, for example, would be let the cloth go off the grid, and here we can see that our picking is actually not strong enough to hold up the cloth under gravity. So I would suggest to actually make it stronger. All right, and reset. I'm gonna now go again up by a factor of 10, so 0.1, which is a tenth of the original strength. I'm gonna reset, press start. Let's try this. All right, I can hold it here and it does not fall under gravity. That's good. All right, next up, sewer tests. Can we go through the floor? It's a bit better, but it's still trying hard. Similar, let's check the rigid body. Yeah, there's still too much popping. I think I want the picking constraint to be a little bit less strong, but we're in the general ballpark. All right, let's end this. I'm going to set the simulation, and I'm just going to make it half the strength. And that should be fine, 0.05. All right, let's start again. Grab the rigid body. I'm going to push it down, and there we go. You see this? Now I'm trying to push the floor, but the collision is stronger than my picking. This is a good start. Similarly, my cloth does not fall under gravity. There we go. And if I move, we get some slight lagging behind on fast movement. There we go. I think this is a good point, and we can work from here. All right, let me pause again the simulation, and to pause and reset simulation. Perfect, now we have our main parameters set, and we can go ahead and do things. For example, if I press start, I could grab this cloth, I can drag it through the circle for this torus. So you can really use this picking for simple scenes to drape things around, make knots, or whatever you please. One important thing to keep track of is your simulation speed. So here we're simulating, and you can see we're quite interactive in the viewport, which means that I get pretty nice action and reaction and not much lagging behind. Now let me end this, reset the simulation, and I'm going to increase the parameters of the simulation to, say, 2020. Spread reset and start. Now, not sure how much you can actually see this come through on the video, but we get much more of a lag. We're much slower now, and it's not quite feeling as interactive, but it's still quite all right. It's not super slow. All right, let me reset the simulation. I've prepared a second cloth, which has a higher resolution. This cloth now has, as you can see, 80,000 triangles, while our original input cloth has way less, has 3,000. So I'm going to change the cloth on the mesh of the cloth node to the new higher res one. So we want P plane shape 2. Let's reset the simulation, go back to the carbon simulation node. I will now, let's hide the cloth, and go to the simulation and press live simulation start. This is now running much slower. You can see that it's very choppy and we get only a couple frames a second. So if I try to now pick something and drag, it is very delayed. This can be used for some small dragging and fixing small issues, but I would not recommend doing major modification to your scene when you don't have enough frames per second. It is just too laggy and you might not get the response that you need. As you can see, I'm struggling just moving the camera around because we do not have enough frames per second. And so you're really not going to be able to do very fine maneuvering of the scene. Let me go back to the simulation. And again, because we're running here live, it's going to delay our UI actually popping up. There we go. Our UI is now here, and it took a while. So I would recommend to make sure that your simulation simulates fast enough. One way to check this is you bring up your script editor and you just run a normal simulation. So reset simulation and just run in the timeline. Okay, pause. And what do we see? We get about 5 frames per second here in this update. So I would recommend you don't run anything that gives you less than 10 frames per second if you want to still be somewhat interactive. Ideally, you want to be above 20 or 30 frames per second. All right, let's hide this again, reset the simulation. We're going to go back to 10, 10, and I'm going to go back to my original plane 1. All right, plane 1, reset the simulation, and let's run the live simulation again. Where is it? It is here, live simulation, and start. And we're back to interactive. Now, just to show you how you get the results out of the simulation, I'm going to press End now to pause it. If I show plane 1, you can see that the output cloth actually has not updated its geometry based on the live simulation. The way you can do it is literally, I'm on the first frame, I'm just going to press back, and there we go. This has caused the scene to cook and update the output of the cloth onto the output mesh, which now is matching the cloth. As you can see here, it's now matching the cloth. Similarly, if I go again, live simulation, start, and I'm going to move my cloth around here and do something with the simulation, you can see that during the live simulation, the output cloth is not, the output mesh is not being updated. This is just a performance improvement and part of how the graph works. If I want it to be updated, press End, press the back arrow button, and now you can't see it anymore because it's actually updated to the cloth. There it is. So output cloth is now updated. So at this point, you can obviously duplicate this, Control D, and I now have my new mesh here. So I could use this now to plug it in as start mesh into my cloth simulation, for example. So this is how you can save your result from your live simulation. Now, let me reset the simulation again and run the simulation here. Okay, now sometimes when you're using live simulation, what you might want to do is pose objects. And the best way to pose objects is actually use the stasis mode. So let me end this, reset the simulation, and go back to the cloth. Cloth has stasis mode, and so does the rigid body. I've reset the simulation now, go back here, go to live simulation and press start. You see the rigid body fall, but the cloth doesn't fall because it is in stasis mode. I can still deform it, as you can see, and it reacts collision with the rigid body, it reacts collision with the floor, but it does not fall under gravity, for example, and it does not preserve momentum. So it's a very staticky, gooey thing that is really nice to drape and to shape around. So you can use this to tie knots or wrap scarves around certain things, as you can tell here. All right, but now I might want to disable stasis mode on the fly and then re-enable it while I'm running the live simulation. The problem is this is currently not possible because we're not running updates on all cloth parameters for efficiency reasons. So if I press End, go to cloth, unclick stasis, go to simulation, go to live simulation and continue, we are still in stasis mode. As I said, for performance reasons, we are not updating all cloth parameters. The only thing you can animate is simulation parameters. Now, how can we still get stasis mode on demand, toggle it in and out on a cloth that's in the live simulation? Let me show you how to do this. I'm going to end the live simulation now. I'm just going to reset the simulation as well. So on the carbon simulation node, you have an option to set stasis traced via hotkeys. Let's do it. So I'm going to go Windows, Settings Preferences, and to the hotkey editor. It's going to take a second, and there we go. The first thing you'll see is a keyboard. In keyboard, everything that's blue, tealish is already taken away. So I cannot use those keys. The normal K, L, G, none of them are possible. But if I press Shift, it's going to show everything that's assigned to Shift something. So Shift K and Shift L, for example, are not assigned. Shift Y, Shift O, Shift N, not assigned. So I could pick Shift and K to assign a function to it that helps me. All right. So what can I assign? Well, I assign a function that sets a parameter on the carbon simulation node, which can be seen down here. Stasis picked or stasis traced. Once you press this, if anything is picked or traced, currently it will be toggled in and out of stasis mode, depending on its current state. Unfortunately, I have found stasis picked to be a problem because hotkeys do not seem to trigger while I have something picked with my mouse button. So for now, we will stick with toggle stasis traced. So I will assign a function to the hotkey which toggles this on. All right, let's do it. Let's go back up to simulation, and I'm just going to hide all of the extra parameters again. There we go. All right, hotkey. How do we get a new command for a hotkey? Well, we click on Runtime Command Editor. We click on New, we type in the name, carbon toggle stasis traced. Perfect. I'm going to just copy and paste this in the description. There's a couple of white spaces. I mean, you don't have to, but I just like to add a description field as well. Let's put it under carbon subcategory. We're going to have a Python script, so swap this to Python. I already have a script, and I'm going to just copy and paste it in here. What do? We import the Maya commands, then we get all simulations in the scene, and for each and every simulation in the scene, we will set the attribute toggle stasis trace to 1. Let's press save runtime command, and it says command has been saved. All right, where can we find it? Here it says edit hotkeys for choose category. Well, we added a custom script, and here we already have the category carbon. I'm going to click on this command, and it automatically swaps here to the hotkey. So I'm going to press Shift and K on my keyboard, and it automatically adds it in. Now I just need to press save and close, and it's in there. Well, let's try. I'm going to press start, and now while hovering over this, my cloth is traced. I press Shift and K, and we can see my cloth is now in stasis mode. There we go. Let's drop the rigid body. There we go, it's moving. My mouse is over it, I'm not selecting it. Press Shift K, and it's set in stasis mode. Let's try if it actually is. Move it. Oh yeah, it's not moving up, it's not falling under gravity. All is good. So now I have these both in stasis mode. Let's move stuff around until I'm happy, and then, well, I want to take it out of stasis, hover over it until your white bounding box appears. Press Shift and K, and again, it untoggles stasis mode again. Same here, hover over it, Shift and K, and there we go. And that's how you add a hotkey to dynamically turn stasis mode on and off on your traced objects. I hope this makes sense, and thank you so much for watching, and have fun using this new feature.